Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else. Here's your host, the president of New York's largest independent union, Suffolk AME's Dan Levler.
Welcome to another edition of Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5 and 94.3 The Shark, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News and views you can't hear anywhere else. So my guest this morning is Senator Monica Martinez. Good morning.
Good morning.
Unprecedented times, to say the least, and there's a lot that we can get into. There's a lot, personally and professionally, I think that we need to talk about. But I just want to start right from the inception here with COVID-19 and how that's had an impact. Obviously it's having an impact in Albany, but your district is really one of the main epicenters. Why do we think that is?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a question I've been asked several times, and there are just so many factors that contribute to why it's happening. One of them is that a lot of the individuals that live in this district, specifically in areas that are considered essential workers, people who are on the front lines, whether they are first responders, our healthcare professionals, our individuals that are just making sure that Suffolk continues working in the entire state of New York. And that includes our grocery workers, our transit workers, our janitorial workers, you name it, they are out there. And that's one of the reasons is that we have a huge concentration of essential workers in the district. Secondly, the entire district has been hit hard, but I have two specific hamlets that have been hit harder, and those are the hamlets of Brentwood and Central Islip. And that is also a contributing factor to that as well. It could have been, aside from essential workers, but it could also be the fact that information was not disseminated in a fashion that should have been relevant to that community in itself. We have a large population of Hispanics and Blacks, and I don't think the information was put out there as much as it should have. And right now what we're trying to do is catch up instead of being right on the forefront with communities that need help, right, that can't get to a testing site because they don't have the financial means or they don't have the transportation means to get there. So I definitely think that was an issue. Another issue is healthcare. Many of our individuals may not have affordable healthcare or access to affordable healthcare. Aside from affordable housing, we see a lot of individuals living with multiple families in homes where you have someone coming home from work and then unfortunately trying to say hello to a loved one and kissing them hello and now putting them in harm's way as well. So there's a whole bunch of contributing factors to why those specific hamlets have been hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And to some degree, I think community leaders are really key at a time like this also, because even when the information is disseminated, there can be a distrust, right? And so hearing it from the right source, hearing it from someone that you're going to respect and believe, I think that also definitely plays a factor. And I think you made an excellent point about healthcare and access to healthcare, because a number of industries have been impacted very hard by this. And especially when you talk about frontline, well, frontline is, in my estimation, anyone that interfaces with the public. And there are a lot of industries that were impacted that, you think about restaurants and bars. I think those things will be different when we come through this crisis, but what they were before and what they are right now, essentially they're just shut down. There are a few restaurants that are producing for takeout and whatever else, but so you may have had access to health care that you don't anymore.
Sure. Yes, and aside from health care, you don't even have employment, right?
Sure.
So many people have been laid off because of this pandemic.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And then it becomes a household fiscal concern. What do we do? Do we try and just ride this out and see how bad it gets? Or do we take our loved one to the hospital and then somehow try and figure out how we're going to financially dig ourselves out of that expense? So these are very pressing concerns. It affects everyone everywhere. But again, just specifically in your district, we saw, and continue to see those issues rise. But you have been addressing some of this stuff. I know that very specifically. You pushed very hard to get one of the testing sites set up in Brentwood. Can you just let us know a little bit about your efforts in helping in this whole process to mitigate the spread?
I appreciate that. And you try to do the best you can throughout the entire district. And as you know, my district's pretty big, going from Brown on the west side all the way to Massachusetts on the east and south of LIE and as far south as Fire Island. And it's a pretty big district with a lot of different people and a lot of different views on things, right? And I was reached out by the community leaders and residents, and they were really upset and they were mad, right? And I don't blame them for being mad. And I'm speaking about individuals in Broward and Central Ice at this moment in time. And their feelings were, why are we always left behind? Why doesn't anyone pay attention to us as well? And to hear those words, it's very upsetting on so many different levels. And,
yes.
And look, and I've also been trying to disseminate information on my social media. I do both Spanish and English, but not everybody has social media, right? So
right.
Even with me trying to get information out has been difficult to my own community because, one, I don't really have the funding to do so. I can't go knocking on doors and say, look, this is what you need to do. And therefore, we need to find different approaches to do things. We do send information to the Spanish outlets so they can print out our articles in the Spanish newspaper. And if people are getting those Spanish newspapers, then they can read. And, so we've been trying to do the bilingual effort in my office. And I think it should have been done at every single level of government to be doing the same exact thing. And it's unfortunate that now we're trying to play catch up instead of being proactive right from the start.
Yeah, there was certainly a missed opportunity there, and as unfortunate as that is, in government we have to learn and not let something like this happen again. And that therein comes your job, right? As a senator, making sure that you put certain rules in place to protect people, to learn from instances like this and make sure that things like this don't happen again. And along those lines, speaking of legislation, I know that there's some things that you've been working on up in Albany. One of them specifically, the Unsung Heroes Act. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
The Unsung Heroes Act of 2020 should be the Unsung Heroes Act forever, right? It's amazing what we have seen during this pandemic and things that we have taken for granted. These unsung heroes, seriously, are heroes every single day, whether it was from this pandemic forward, but it was from this pandemic before. And it's amazing how they put their lives on the line every single day. And yes, we saw it more with this pandemic because now our first responders, our healthcare workers, our essential workers that were deemed by the governor. That means anyone, like you said before, has to have interaction face-to-face with the public, which includes members of AME who are out there.
Absolutely.
Whether they are our CPS workers, our adult protective services. I mean, life continues, and it has to continue. And these individuals that at one point, at the same regular time, daily, just doing their lives, are now putting their lives even in more danger during this pandemic because they have no choice but to be out there. They have no choice but to continue to provide the services that we need in order for us to keep on living, in order for us to be healthy, in order for us to be protected. And it's amazing that we have not fulfilled our obligation of taking care of them just as they're taking care of us. So my Unsung Heroes Act of 2020 is Senate Bill number 8117. And what it's meant to do is to increase protections to include all essential workers that have been affected due to the COVID-19 crises, meaning they will be given guaranteed sick leave and job protection to those who were stricken by COVID, as well as death benefits for their family if the individual is to succumb to the virus. We have seen thousands of unsung heroes who have been deemed essential personnel who have been serving the public on a daily basis, and just to ensure our residents can continue to live their everyday lives. And what I am looking for in this bill is a 50% cost sharing arrangement between the state and the county in order to cover the cost of medical care. And what that would also do, it would help ease the burden on businesses and local municipalities. For those who don't know what the unsung heroes means, but they really should, is, like I said before, anyone that is in healthcare, infrastructure, manufacturing, services, retail, just your basic necessities, and construction. I can't even believe construction was part of it too.
Yeah.
I had construction workers calling me and say, "Do I have to go to work?" and things like that. You don't think about. You don't think about the fact that a building still has to be built in order to continue. Our officers, our police officers, our troopers, our sheriffs, our our grocery workers. And just recently I was speaking to Assemblyman DeStefano, and I know that we need to also consider our 911 dispatchers essential.
Absolutely. Not only essential, but, as first responders in a day and age like this, I don't think anybody thinks that these operators and dispatchers are not frontline workers, are not first responders. But yet, the mechanics of government hasn't caught up with the world. These are things that definitely need to be fixed.
And look, Dan, I remember from being at the county, there was always an issue with our dispatchers, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing that it's still going on, but people don't realize that the first phone call you make when you dial 911 goes to them.
Right.
It is those individuals that are dispatchers who are picking up that phone call and making sure that that phone call goes directly to the correct precinct and the ambulances that need to be present at a scene.
Yes, and they're not getting calm phone calls where people are saying, "Hey, listen, sorry to bother you at this." It's literally the worst day in the person's life, and the people on the other end of the phone, the operators, their hearts go out, but they've still got to do their job. So they take some incredible phone calls and do an amazing job to make sure that fire and police and EMS services are dispatched exactly where they need to be as rapidly as possible.
I agree. So I did tell Assemblyman DeStefano that I will be co-sponsoring that on the Senate side.
Awesome. So, just talking about frontline workers, obviously everybody, again, understands, police officers, firefighters, EMS, all of that stuff. But now we're seeing, maybe a shift in people's consciousness. And we're realizing healthcare workers are frontline. Social services, we're facing during and after this virus some financial considerations the likes we've not seen in our lifetime. So social services is going to play a pivotal role in making sure that families that are financially impacted during this crisis and after this crisis have access to food for their children. The Labor Department is going to see an uptick and already has seen an uptick of over 50,000 cases of people applying because industries have shut down, and these are people that can, will, and should be working but can't. So there's this front line has really shifted in this crisis. It really
has, and what it has also shown us is that, not for nothing, Dan, everyone is essential when you really take a look at it, right?
Absolutely.
And I've said that from the beginning. Every single person who's considered an essential worker, you are also essential to your family. And the fact is, when you go home, you are now putting the risk on your family as well. And it's amazing how, yes, we have this pandemic right now, but even if this pandemic was not here today, we should really take into consideration that these individuals are essential every single day because they keep our lives moving.
They always have been essential, And I remember as a county legislator, you would hear exactly that from me. The fact of the matter is, I think the world is waking up to who we really need. And the bottom line is, as you said it, everyone. That's who we need. We need everyone. And this system was designed for all of us to be at work and helping each other in various ways. Anyone working is a hero economically and for society as a whole. And that's definitely one of the main reasons that, we are firmly behind this Senate bill. Again, thank you for stepping out, leading the charge, and getting that in place.
And I appreciate that. We talked about unemployment, and we're even facing something with unemployment right now, and those are individuals who have forfeit days. I'm not sure if you have anyone in your department who's facing this, but it's individuals are not eligible to receive the 1,200 stimulus pay or even the $600 pay because of forfeit days. Forfeit days are days that are owed back to the Department of Labor, and therefore these individuals have no access to anything that the government has put out as a stimulus package. And these are families with children, not just of one or two, but some of them with four, and they are constantly asking for this forfeit days to be waived. I mean, it doesn't mean that they won't pay it back, but during this time period, it should be waived. People should be getting a little help during this time, especially when they have families and they have children to feed, and they should not be worrying about whether they can put food on the table or not.
Yeah, I don't think anybody listening could imagine how a parent would turn around and explain to their kids, listen, we're not eating this week. You know, we don't have the money for food. You know, if you're not eating as the parent, you'll live with it, and that's fine. But my kids got to get something to eat. And you know, this is again, this just gets back to why everyone is essential. As a society, we've pulled together in various ways with different laws and rules and social programs and everything else to ensure that when hard times like this hit, people aren't left behind. And an effort needs to be made on all of our parts to be understanding of the fact that there are certain people out there that aren't gaming the system in any way, shape, or form. They simply have been caught in a circumstance, you know, nobody knew was coming. You know, I guess there's varying levels of who thought what was coming when, but nobody predicted this impact. And now they have to get by and they have to provide for their family. So every effort should be made on everyone's part. You know, people in positions like yours should take the steps that you have been taking to ensure that these problems get rectified. But us as a society, we've got to be understanding of each other and realize that, you know, but by the grace of God, you know, we're you know, those of us that find us in a situation where we're not scrambling for food for our family. I
agree, and it's such a trying time, and I will tell you that this, I don't even know how long it's been already, I lost count, but how many days and weeks, but I will tell you that I have taken this time as a time of reflection. I have taken this time to really appreciate my family, appreciate my friends, appreciate the job that I hold, and we cannot take things for granted. We really cannot. I have, you know, I'm actually lost for words because it's giving me a time where I can say to myself, wow, I have been blessed with a family. Thankfully, we're all safe, and I have two elderly parents that I care for, and I've had to be extra careful. I sometimes don't care about what happens to me, though I should, right? But
sure. I get it.
But my parents are my priority, right? They're the ones that I sustain. They're the ones that I care for. And if I'm not safe for them, then I put them in harm's way. But then thinking about myself, if I'm not well, then I can't provide for them and make sure that they're okay.
Right.
And I've been blessed. And the one thing that I've been trying to do throughout this whole entire time of quarantine or isolation and 6 feet away from people is that I've taken steps for my own mental health. And that's something that I hope individuals are doing because it can get frustrating, and it can get lonely, and it can get depressive at times. I go for my runs and my walk now, right?
Yeah.
It's something that I need, that I know is going to keep me sane and not fall into a possible depression that many have as well.
Gratitude is something that if you practice it mentally, just every day, just thinking of something positive, something to be happy for, something to be grateful of. But it's very hard to grab hold of in a time like this because there is so much uncertainty and so much, negativity coming at us. I mean, you can't turn on the TV without being reminded that bad things are happening around us all the time. But gratitude is absolutely something that all of our listeners should really try and exercise to help get them through this whole process. So I think that is a great thing for you to be doing, and I think all our listeners should be doing as well. As difficult as it is, as annoyed as you may be to hear me say that, try it anyway. See if it can't, keep your spirits going a little bit while we get all through this.
Look, I have to separate my parents once in a while. They're about to just go at it. They've been cooped up so long together.
It's very true. It's very true. So, I just want to get into a little bit of Albany stuff because the way the state is responding to things is going to have an impact on everybody. And part of how the state deals with things is budget. And obviously the cycle was quite disrupted this year. What everybody had hoped to get done wasn't done. Again, there was this big push. I felt, continuously for, the last year and this year to try and get certain marijuana legislation put in place that hasn't been realized. But, there were some things that we were successful on. And, I want to commend you very much so on your push on bail reform and discovery law changes. But can we just talk a little bit about what the budget process was like for you and some of the wins that you think came out of this year's session?
Great question. It was definitely a budget season unprecedented in many ways, and one way than others. But nonetheless, we had to make sure that we had the state functioning. Many of us did not get paid on April 1st because we did not pass a timely budget. And we had angry callers calling because they hadn't gotten paid, inclusive of my team and myself. But it's we finally got it done. But it was tough. It was no one realized this was going to take place as much as it has. We already knew that we were going through the budget process with debt already incurred. This added additional debt to our already troubling economy here in the state of New York. And making those decisions were very difficult. I mean, look, we have to fund our schools. We have organizations that need to be funded that really rely on state assistance to help others across the state. Our healthcare system. I mean, just everything that we do on a regular year, right? Let's say, and I say that now in quotes, normal or regular,
right?
Right. I don't even know what's considered normal. This is going to be our new norm, and therefore we had to make those difficult decisions. But at the end of the day, we have to keep the state running. And with every single budget, we like some things, we don't like others. But if we don't pass a budget, government closes and shuts down. And that's why some of these choices and some of these votes are so hard to take sometimes, because you're not happy with everything. You're not happy with certain aspects of it. For example, for me, school funding, our schools didn't get funded the way they should. I'm a former teacher. I'm a former administrator. Our schools already do so much with so little. And to know that there's a potential cut in our schools even now with this pandemic, it's scary, right? Because at the end of the day, it's our kids that get affected by this. And so that was in the budget. And though I don't like it, it's something that I have to do in order to keep government functioning. And it's one of those things that sometimes individuals don't understand the process that goes into passing this budget. And you can't please everyone. And you just hope that at the end of the day, you did the right thing for the state of New York.
Yeah, and things are packaged all the time. When you're talking about a budget, you can't necessarily cherry pick, I like this and I don't like that, because all districts have different needs, and you have to pass a budget that affects the entirety of the state of New York. And sometimes, I definitely have experienced myself, and I have experienced you being in this situation where, the assumption is, well, you didn't think this through, or you didn't consider my needs because you would have done things differently. And that's not the case. It's, being aware of all sides of the issue, but taking in something as global as an entire state's budget. That means that there are going to be compromises everywhere. Nobody is getting 100% of what they need in any given cycle. But I think you said it right in that, the whole concept is to do the best you possibly can for the most amount of people across the state of New York. And your job is to specifically focus on your district.
Exactly. And like I said before, not everybody's gonna be happy with it. And I'm not happy with it, right? But we gotta keep moving. And what really we have to focus on is our day-to-day lives too, and how we impact each other on a local level, and how we can help someone when they call my office and they are in need. And obviously, with every decision that we make in the state of New York, we don't do it just to do it. We really do think about things. We talk about it. We negotiate. We argue. obviously behind closed doors. But everybody has a different district. My district is very different than another district on Long Island, or my district is completely different than someone in the city. And those are issues that we have to hash out, but we have to do it respectfully. And I think where we are with our conference in the New York State Senate is that we are able to hear each other out. We are able to now understand each other's districts and the needs that each of our districts have, and respect them, and come to a negotiation where, look, you may not be happy with it, I'm somewhat happy with it, but at least we compromise on it. And I always say when there's a compromise, neither side likes it, must be somewhat good.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth in compromise for sure. So I want to just talk about, I guess, the worst aspect of the job, or at least, from my perspective, the worst aspect of the job. And probably the last thing you're thinking about right now at all, but something that, all elected leaders need to take into consideration this year because it is an election year. How do you approach, or how does anyone in government or elected office approach campaigning at a time like this?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is the least on my mind. I know that my opponent is out there putting out ads. My job right now is to make sure that I take care of my constituents, and that when they're calling my office, my team is on call. My entire team is on remote hours right now. They're working from home, and our lines are being redirected to their home on their cell phone through our Senate lines. And the amount of calls that we're getting in surpasses what we were having before this pandemic. And it's great to know that people are calling, people are seeing that we are accessible. I have always prided myself in making sure that I am 100% accessible. We are delivering masks to people. I partnered up with a law firm, Ferro Cuba Mangano, who between them and I, we ordered masks, and I've been delivering masks to our constituents who are in need of it. And though I know I should be concentrating on election and campaign, right now it's the least of my mind, but I know that I'll have to at some point, right? It definitely isn't my priority to continue representing the district. I love what I do. And there's so many people struggling right now. I just don't see how I can actually go and ask someone for their support at this moment in time. I just don't know how that's even possible or plausible or even considerate, right? I just don't understand how we can continue campaigning with social distancing. That's the other thing. I don't want to call it social distancing, but more physical distancing, because we do need to be socially connected.
Sure.
But I've been reaching out to certain groups, and groups have been reaching out to me, some political groups in the district, and we've done Zoom calls and Zoom conferences and see how we can move forward with campaign, whether it's a writing campaign, right, where we're sending letters and notes to all our constituents, something. But eventually I do have to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm here, I love you, and I want to continue working for you. But right now, my main priority is to make sure that everyone is safe, that everyone gets what they deserve from our government, and hopefully come November, I can continue doing the same thing next year for them.
Well, I just have to say the best way to interview for a job is to do the job and do the job well. And I think that you have definitely been doing exactly that for your district. So in terms of, your focus, I think it's exactly where it needs to be right now. Hitting what is most important, wanting to continue to do the job is, we can admire that. But if your focus isn't on doing the job right now in this time of crisis, that's a disservice to your district. So 100% commendable.
Thank you.
So I just want to circle back, because we had talked about the budget, the New York State budget, changes in the discovery laws and changes in bail reform. But I think that there's so much more to talk about there. I just want to give you an opportunity to let us know, what it is you specifically had been pushing for to that end.
I appreciate that. And just before, when you had mentioned the budget process and how difficult it is and making difficult choices and have everything bundled in, same thing happened last year, right? Certain things were bundled in that I wasn't happy with. And one of them was the change to our criminal justice system. And look, do we need change to a criminal justice system? Of course. There is no doubt. There is no doubt that there are individuals who are incarcerated for the wrong reasons because they could not pay bail. They could not post bail. And then you have two individual people committed the same crime. One can pay, one cannot. The one who can't stays in, while the one who can is released. Right. That is the unfairness of what the criminal justice system had in place last year. In January of this year of 2020, it went into effect, and I wasn't happy with it. I was not happy with what happened back in April of 2019, and I made it clear to people that I was not, happy with those changes, because what it did, it took away certain crimes that were eligible for bail, and you had individuals who were out and released to our streets when they should have at least have had a pre-trial detention, just really look at the person's criminal history and determine what could happen with that person if that person was released back into society. Would that person pose a danger to society and the safety of the public? And that was taken away. And as soon as that budget passed last year, Senator Jim Corner and I put in a bill immediately trying to amend it back in 2019, back in April, a year ago, trying to make sure that we continued changing it to protect the public safety. And come January 1st, you heard of so many things that went down because of the new bail and whether judges had the discretion or not of what to do. And for me, that has always been a priority. Where we have our judges. And there's a reason why we have judges. There's a reason why we have three branches of government. Right. You have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. And there's a reason why the legislative branch makes the laws and the judges have to interpret them. And when you take away the job of a judge, then what are they left with? We literally took away the discretion of our judges on certain crimes that would have affected the safety of our public. And so I put in a bill to make sure that we protected the public safety as well. And even though my bill was not moving, which is it was Bill 7156, it was about making sure that we return the discretion back to our judges, that we included crimes that people would have to post bail for if they did pose a threat to danger in society. But I didn't get everything that I wanted. I stayed in contact with all our law enforcement partners, our advocacy groups on the reforms that were taking place. And again, look, is it a perfect situation that we're in now? No. Is it better than what we were back in January 1st? Definitely. But it's gonna take some time, and we're not stopping. I still have my bill in. I continue to push for it. And that's pretty much where I'm at with bail, and same thing with discovery. And I know discovery affects you a lot,
sure.
Our AME members.
Sure. The pressure that your bill creates up in Albany to get some change, to actually balance individual rights and the rights of the public in any of these instances, yes, I think you're right. There was time for change. Were the right decisions made? Well, that's really the question. But you putting forward bills like this and fighting for bills like this creates the pressure that allowed us to see the change that we saw in this last budget cycle. And continuing with that, we will continue to see changes to again balance individual rights and public safety.
And we have to continue doing that. You're right. And I am committed to doing that. And people ask me, why do you do this? Why do you try to cause friction with the conference? And for me, it's not me causing friction with the conference. It's me being the independent person that I am. This is what's important to me. It's what's important to my district. It's important what I believe for the state of New York, which is making sure that we're all protected. And it's not about being combative. It's about doing, again, in my opinion, what is the right thing to do. And if that causes friction with my colleagues, then that's not on me. But I know that I will keep putting bills in that I believe are smart, are common sense bills that I know will protect the state of New York, protect my family, protect myself and those that I love, and just continue to do the right thing. At the end of the day, Dan, when I put my head on my pillow, I need to make sure that I did everything right that I could have done that day, not just for the people that I represent, but for my own sanity. And if I'd rather be wrong sometimes than be right, because I've made certain decisions while in this position that may not have been in agreement with some individuals, but then I start seeing the consequences of it. And I learn from my mistakes, and I will continue learning from my mistakes. We are human, but as long as I know that I'm trying to do the right thing for my district, I will continue putting these bills that people don't like.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you right now, that is the difference between a politician and an elected representative. And I said it 2 years ago, and I continue to say it. You are absolutely an elected representative. That you are an individual who the community said, we want this person to represent what's in our best interest, and then you go out and do it. Political ideology, it has its place in the world, but at the end of the day, you've got to fight for your district, and you've got to fight for what you know is right. And that's part of the process, sometimes maybe disagreeing with your colleagues. And so I don't see that as the wrong thing. And, if you're pushing for change that's actually going to help some people, chances are it's also going to upset some people as well. So, I guess it comes with the territory. But I want to...
Sure does.
Yeah, so I want to thank you. I know you have tremendous concerns right now, with everything that you're doing as the senator in that district. But I want to thank you for taking the time to come on with us, get us up to speed and updated, and do us all a favor, and for your parents as well. Stay safe, keep your social distancing going, and keep at it.
I will. Thank you. You too. And I hope everyone's safe on your end. And before I leave, can I just say thank you to all of our AME workers out there for keeping Suffolk moving in the right direction. I owe it all to you as well. So please keep on fighting and be well.
Thank you again. And to our listeners, we'll see you again next week.